Okay, so we're here. We're live. We've got the next Canadian Animation video log, I think they're called. We're here with Emily. Emily, do you want to introduce yourself and your work?
Yeah, hi, I'm Emily Ann Hoffman. I'm an animator, illustrator, artist, jack of all trades. So I've been animating for about 6 years now, and I do freelance stop motion animation. And I'm a writer and director as well. So I've put out about three, four in the works short films. And we're here to talk about Nevada, which is a stop motion comedy that I wrote and directed and animated last year.
Right on. Can you give the viewers a little idea of what Nevada's about?
Yes, so it's about a young couple who is away on a romantic weekend getaway, and that whole vacation kind of gets interrupted when they have a birth control mishap, and they have to talk about Plan B and pregnancy and all that fun stuff that people love to talk about early in a relationship.
And what was the inspiration for that?
Oh, maybe personal experiences. Definitely a little personal experiences and just, chatting with female friends, particularly in college, about having this experience, going to have to take emergency contraceptives and the awkward, funny, and sometimes sad ways that this went down with our male partners.
Right.
And also, of course, the added stigma and shame that's associated with taking these contraceptives, the difficulty in accessing these products, how to know what product is best, etc. And so just kind of wanting to shed light on a situation that I think is pretty common, but we don't talk about that
Yeah,
often
totally
in
common.
public.
I had a high
Yeah,
school situation myself, and I was not very responsible. I let the other
it's
party handle everything.
that's the thing is I think it's been really interesting sharing it with men and women because part of what's exciting about sharing it is and why it's important to talk about is that if the male partner doesn't know what to do and kind of falls back, it's not necessarily like they're a terrible person. You're just overwhelmed and you don't know what to do either. So, talking about it and educating everyone helps everyone be more prepared to tackle that situation. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I come from a small town, so it's kind of that thing. Whereas if you like go into the drugstore, everybody knows.
yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, Graydon's here for plan
Yeah,
B. What did he
exactly.
do?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard.
And like technically people aren't supposed to talk about it, but they do.
They do, or you just see their eyes boring into you and you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, then you're just worried about someone talking about it. And yeah, it's a horrible feeling going into the drugstore for those items.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a lesson. So what would you say to guys who aren't being responsible? What would be a lesson that you would say as a woman who has had to deal with that?
I think stick with your partner and defer to her guy. Like if you're feeling lost and if you are wanting to kind of back out of the situation because you don't know how to handle it, just admit that you don't know how to handle it. Talk to her about it and just stick with it. And if she doesn't care if you're part of the process, that's fine. You can go on your merry way. But if she wants you there, you're 50% responsible for this very sticky situation. So
If you're going to
stick
do it,
with
you
it.
got to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, obviously, if you're willing to have sex, you have to be willing to deal with the consequences. And most of the time it's fun consequences. Other times it's, you gotta clean up your mess. So, but just beyond that, also obviously talk to your partner ahead of time about birth control, about condoms, about everything. I think there's just so much shame and stigma around sex. If we could just talk about it more openly from the beginning, it would solve a lot of problems.
Totally. And that's a great segue into animation because I think like animation has the ability to talk about those things in a humorous way and a way that people can accept and not feel awkward about because there's the humor there. So maybe you can talk about your process to decide to discuss this using your animation.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm an animator by trade, so it felt natural to tell a story through animation. But just like you said, I wanted it to be a comedy. I wanted it to be a fairly light mood, even though it could be a relatively serious topic. But I also, I think we're all a little sick of these Hollywood cliche portrayals of sex where it's like, they're kissing and then they're having sex immediately and then they're naked and everyone looks perfect. And then at the end, they're like hiding under the covers and her makeup's still great and her hair is perfect. And they're like, what should we do now? So I wanted it to be a more authentic situation and really feel relatable. And I feel like, post coitus, people are walking on naked. You're talking about it with your partner naked. And so I thought it was way easier to get away with essentially full nudity the whole film for puppets. And it's also funny to see naked puppets. My puppets in particular are kind of lopsided and lumpy, and it's charming, and I think people also identify with it because
It's more real.
our bodies aren't perfect.
Yeah, I'd say that's something I
Um,
want Def to talk about. Is the style you used, like the lumpy? Is it foam latex?
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
You're
oh.
actually the only person who's picked up on that. Everyone's always like, "Oh, it's claymation," but yeah, it's foam insides and then painted acrylic and latex skin. So it's kind of shiny, so it looks like clay, but yeah, the lumps partially are just because foam, like puppet foam is hard to carve
I've
perfectly. So
I've worked with it, and it's so hard to make it look attractive. So
yeah,
the
what are
fact you
you
just
saying?
said,
Are you saying my puppets aren't attractive?
well, okay, conventionally attractive, I guess I should say,
I'm too,
but I think that's
yeah.
great. I think that's that you embraced that and you just went with it. It's something a lot of people have fought against instead of just being like, let's go with it and see where we end up with that. And it emphasized your story because none of us are perfect. Like I know, like
No.
we have lumps. You get older, you get little like fatty things that like blob up in your arm, and you go to the doctor. And you're like, I think I have cancer, and they say, no, you've got blah 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 blah, and it's really normal, and everyone has it, and you're like, no one talks about this. I thought I was gonna
Yeah.
die.
Oh no. Yeah, so they're very lumpy and it's been fun because a lot of women her breasts uneven. A lot of women have come up to me and been like, "That's so identifiable. Like my boobs are uneven. One of them's bigger than the other." I think that's pretty common for a lot
I
of
don't
women. So
I don't know any woman that has exactly perfect breasts.
yeah, none of us do.
Yeah.
Impossible breast standards out there. So yeah, that was a huge part of the animation impetus. And then the other part was there's like some elements of magical realism in the pharmacy. There's like condom boxes. All the products pop in and out, and then when they're fantasizing about the baby, the baby pops in and out of their arms, and that was something where that's really natural to stop motion to do those pops. Whereas if I had done that in live action, it would have been like these really weird, jarring special effects that would not have worked the same way.
The style fits it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
medium is the message.
Total. Yeah. Okay. Marshall McLuhan, like a
Yeah,
Canadian shout out.
nice.
All right. So let's go back. How did you start into animation? How did you decide this is your path?
Well, I always knew I loved art and I wanted to be an artist for as long as I can remember. And I went to Rhode Island School of Design and studied illustration there because I was a big painter and I thought that's what I wanted to do. But when I started getting into the illustration department, I realized like I always wanted to like tell jokes and kind of tell a story, but I was having a difficult time achieving that through like, a 2D single image. Um, and then I just, took an animation class on a whim and I was like, this makes sense. I can like tell a joke over a period of time through animation, or I can, tell a story because it's a time-based medium. So that kind of just sparked it, and it stop motion like we were talking about before, is so great because you're still an artist within stop motion. You're drawing, you're painting, you're sculpting, all this stuff that I love to do with my hands, I still get to do while making a film.
Totally. It kind of encompasses all those forms of art.
Hmm. Exactly.
That's what I loved
So
about it.
yeah, it's really fun. And it's so magical. It's very like I feel like it really fulfills all my childhood desires to, get my letter from Hogwarts and be be a magic person. I'm just like, okay, if I can't do it through that, then I'll make this inanimate object move and that will be my magic.
Totally. Did you ever
Yeah.
watch Robot Chicken?
I watched it in animation classes. I didn't really watch it independently, but we definitely watched it as an inspiration and like a learning tool.
Yeah, because they use a lot of like awkward, lumpy foam latex puppets in Robot
Yeah,
Chicken.
that's fun. I like them a lot.
Yeah, and they just embrace it. They totally embrace it in the same way and just make it ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why stop motion's also great because you can do it on so many different, like you can do it as such an amateur and then you can do it, like Leica or Aardman where it's this crazy professional level, but there's value and charm to either way.
I'd
I
say
like,
it's the easiest
yeah.
one to start into because you can see your
Yes.
results. You move it, take a picture, you move it, take a picture, and it kind of like connects the links in people's brains when I'm teaching stop motion in a way
Hmm.
that drawing it, they can't figure out how the different drawings are connected.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense because you're keeping the same object or figure throughout the whole thing and you're just adjusting it as opposed to like starting from scratch with each frame of a drawing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool. It's interesting, I feel like teaching it because or trying to explain it to people who don't do it because I find that it's a really simple concept once you can grasp it, but people are just like refuse to grasp it because it seems like too much work.
Yeah, the
So
brains kind
it's
of explode.
yeah, they're like and every time they're like, "Well, do you use a computer to do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I use Dragon Frame, like, the program to capture it, but it's not computer animation, but I'm using a computer to help." And they're like, as soon as you introduce the computer, they're like, "Oh, okay, 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 okay. That's acceptable now."
Yeah, yeah, totally. I love how
But
people are trying to jump from like keyframe to keyframe and no in betweens.
yeah, that it doesn't work as well. I'm not much of a computer animation person myself actually because I just like troubleshooting with my hands instead of After Effects is kind of every time I have to open it up, I'm just like, ah.
Yeah, I've kind of stayed away from After Effects as well. I do it like when I have to, like for
Mhm.
titles, but other than that, I'm kind of like, can't stay over there.
Yeah. It's just very different if you're used to handcrafted stuff.
Yeah, and there's something that's tactile. You can just jump in and do it. And personally, that's what I love. I love going into
Hmm.
that. And so we're going to talk about the next film you're working on. This is a
Yeah.
short film. Can you
Hmm.
say something a little bit about that?
Sure. It's called Bug Bite, and this is actually a mixed media film, so it takes place in a live action world, but there's a 2D animated rotoscoped element to it as well as a stop motion element. And it's about a young woman who has bed bugs and ends up forming a bond with the female bed bug as they're both contending with toxic masculinity. So it's a comedy. Um,
That sounds
and
great.
the bed bug is stop motion, and then she's watching this TV show the whole time that's kind of like an Oprah-esque talk show, and that's rotoscoped characters.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And where can people see that eventually?
That, we're still coming up with our plan. We're starting to submit to festivals now, so hopefully at a film festival soon. But if you follow me on Instagram, which is at Emily Ann Animation, so it's animation with two N's. So clever. Um, you can keep up with updates, and I'll post about when it's coming out and when it'll be, at festivals and online. So
Right on. So Instagram's
hang
your
out.
kind of main one?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram mostly. I have a Twitter too, but I don't really use it that often. My Twitter is basically like uh, animation and like festival stuff, or
Yeah.
protests against what's happening in the U.S. government. So it's a bit of a mess over there.
Yeah, yeah. I think of like reinvigorating one of my animations just because like Trump is so ridiculous. I don't know what to do with him.
You don't even live here, and I know,
No,
I
but I'm
know.
half American. I'm a dual
Oh,
citizen, so I have to kind of
wow.
like
Good for you, bad for you.
deal with it. It's fine.
No, it's well, that's the thing. That's the problem is that everyone has to deal with it, even if you're not American. He's just everywhere doing
Yeah.
everything. But
So do
and that's the crazy thing about Nevada is that it's suddenly more relevant politically than when I made it, just because, now they're trying to attack Roe v. Wade in the Supreme Court.
yeah.
So gotta fight back through our art.
You do. You totally do. You have to, and humor. Art and humor.
Yes.
I found those are the best ways. You want to do political activism? Art and humor. And don't be a hypocrite unless you recognize you're being a hypocrite for humorous purposes.
Okay. That's a good piece of advice. Very nice.
Did you see the blow up Trump, baby Trump?
Yes, I did.
So
That was
good.
amazing. And that they, went through such a formal process to get that approved. It felt like the most British thing to do, to be
Totally.
like, may we please do this? And they're like, yes, you may for this amount of time. And then they're like, great, here's our giant turd baby.
Oh, it's incredible. But yeah, that's and I've got a protest song planned with my uncle as well because they just cut his health insurance.
Oh God, that's horrible.
Yeah, he's been paying it for years and years, and they're just like, nope, you're done.
Oh no. Yeah, that's horrible. I'm
It's
sorry about that.
yeah, no, it's bad. So
But at least you've got a great song coming out of it.
and animation.
Nice.
So yeah, we just have to protest. But and where can people see Nevada?
Nevada is still not out yet, but I don't know if I'm really allowed to say this, but it will be online very shortly. So again, come follow me on Instagram, and in August, I'm going to tell you where you can watch it online.
Wonderful.
But
Okay, I'm gonna follow right
yeah,
now. So this is what everyone
yeah.
should do who's watching this. Just gonna
Or if you just search Emily Ann Hoffman, I'm sure you'll find my handle.
Emily Ann Hoffman. Here we go
Mm-hmm.
here. Instagram is loading. Still.
Hoffman.
Okay. Mhm. Got it.
Yes.
Boom. There we go. That's what everyone should do.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for setting a great example.
No problem. Yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Um, Tell me about one of your paintings.
What do we got? I think actually, yeah, I've got a kind of fun one. Do you know about
Ooh,
Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister?
I know of him.
Right.
What about him?
So this piece is based on him,
Oh.
and it's this line technique I've been working on.
Oh, wow. Oh my
I don't know
goodness.
if we can get in like, but
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's kind of fun. I don't know if
That's fun. Is that based on an actual photo of him?
yeah, so he won in a
Boxing?
boxing tournament back in the day. I don't know, maybe like 6 years ago,
Yeah.
and he was fighting a conservative senator who's since been disgraced and left the conservative party and the Senate.
Wow.
Um, and he's also showing off his hide tattoo, so it's like a Native American tattoo.
Oh.
But then he's kind of pissed off the Native Americans because he's putting a pipeline through in BC.
Right. I
Um,
did hear about that.
yeah,
I've heard because for a while, everyone in America, probably in Canada too, was like swooning over him because he's so handsome and does yoga and has fairly good politics. But then, you know, some more things started to surface, and we're like, oh, He's not perfect either, but
I know.
at least he's kind of dreamy.
Yeah, at least he's not a total dick.
Yes. I would say in comparison to what we got going on here, he's at least like more put together and
Yeah.
has decent graces.
I
If
just miss Obama. I totally like. Uh,
if you just I every day I look at him and Michelle's portraits
I
and
know.
it cheers me up.
You're just
That
like,
was yeah.
there's a perfect couple and a perfect, perfect head of state
Hmm.
doing so many great things. And I mean, yes, they're not perfect. There are different things like the military expanded or whatever, but all in all,
A
way
lot
better than Trump.
a lot better. And just in terms of like social politics, I
Yeah.
feel like
Like
they
not
did
being
so
racist.
much. Yeah, that was one of them. Like, attempting didn't he pardon a lot of felons right before he left office, like
He
who
might have.
were on, I think, for like small misdemeanors, people who were in prison for selling a dime bag,
Right. Or like
like that type of
having,
thing.
a gram of marijuana on them and then going to jail for multiple years.
Exactly,
And
which
you're just
was
like, is that really
a racist
commiserate with the
system
crime?
anyways. Yeah. Yeah, so all that I'd certainly yeah. No president's gonna be perfect, but
Yeah.
he was really wonderful.
Yeah. So anyway, next election, things will be better.
Yeah, midterms are coming up, so we're gonna
Yeah.
sweep the house, hopefully. We've got some cool up and comers.
Yeah.
That woman from the Bronx. Have you heard of her? Alexandria Ortez, I think her last name
Maybe.
is. She's yeah, she's a very awesome young Latinx Bronx up and comer who like
Okay, I'm gonna check
uh
her out.
yeah, she's awesome. So we just got to keep on that path.
Yeah, totally. Rise up, make the world a
Knock
better
out the
place.
dinosaurs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
Well,
it was
thanks
great
again, Emily. It
talking.
was really nice
Yeah,
meeting you.
you too.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll send links up for your different animations and links to your Instagram. And hopefully we'll touch base maybe in a couple months and see where you're at then.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.